God is good. And all the time. Welcome to Tuesday Bible Study. This is your April Fool's edition. Welcome, welcome. I know, I didn't even think about that when I left the house today. April Fool's. My wife is a teacher, so 100 times people are going to ask her if she has her shoes untied. There's a lot of times that she will keep them intentionally untied and walk around. So when kids say, your shoes are untied, she'll say, you're fooling me. You're fooling me. I'm not going to look. No, really, it's true. Nope, not going to look. No, you're trying to. Yeah. Sneaky. Let's pray. God above, we are reaching out to you today in prayer, in hope, in love, and peace. We pray, Lord, that those who need to reach out for whatever reason in their hearts and their minds and their spirits will find a listening ear, whether a teacher, a parent, a friend, a church, even to you, O God. We know you listen to our cries, and we pray that you answer. And may we as children of God also make that answer when called upon us. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. 2 chapters. We are 2 chapters away from being done with Genesis. We are so close. Like I shared last week, this is kind of the curtain call of Genesis of the Bible. That book of the Bible, the very first book. And Jacob's got all these kids. At the end of this, I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. Jacob passes away at the end of this chapter. Oh, I know. And if you didn't know that, it's 3,000 years ago. Get over it. It happened. And then poor Joseph. Joseph got some ink in this in the Bible, but Jacob passes away this chapter, and then Joseph. Now we get to the end of his story. Next chapter. So Jacob has most of the ink, most of the press in Genesis, and so this is his story. Here he is. He's going to be blessing his kids, and we're just kind of going to take them one by one. You might notice up on the wall there's a map showing the eventual tribes of Israel. So Jacob had all these kids. The boys turned into 12 tribes. Granted, Joseph's gets split between 2. We had that story last week where there's 2 kids that get blessed. The tribes took place after Egypt, after the 400 years of Egypt. So these tribes, you kind of kept your who you belong to during these 400 years, and then later on you get the land, and that's the land up there. And I'll share a little bit more about that as we go through. But Genesis 49, we're going to do verses 1 through 4.
Then Jacob called for his sons and said, "Gather around so I can tell you what will happen to you in days to come. Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to your father Israel. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, first sign of my strength, excellent in honor, excelling in power. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel, for you went up into your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it."
All right, so the blessings start, and if Reuben thinks if this is the blessing, doesn't sound very blessful. This is Jacob's last significant act as a patriarch and heir to Abram and Isaac. Here he prophesies blessings upon each son, one by one. Some of what follows are not so much blessings as they are prophecies regarding what will happen to these tribes in the future. They are, if you take the Bible, not literally, but if Genesis was written first and then Exodus, kind of like in a linear fashion, this is the first conscious prophecy spoken by a human being in the Bible. There are prophecies announced by God, angels. Later on we get prophets, but this is the first time that this says, this is what's going to happen to you in the future. There's an old Jewish tradition. we don't think it's true, but it's just one of those little folklore sort of things. Jewish tradition tells us as Jacob was about to bless his son, he was about to tell him the greatest secret about what's going to happen at the end of time. And so God gave Jacob a vision. This is what's going to happen at the end of time. And Jacob was about to deliver it, and God took it back. Like, I'll let you know for a minute, and then I'm going to take it back. So you don't remember now. Of course, that's a folklore, but it's just one of those things that rabbis tell their kids when they go to bed, one of those good night stories. I don't know if it makes for a good night story, but it'd be like someone like, this is how the rest of your life is going to unfold. But then I have to take that memory out of you. But you'll know it for a moment. I don't know if I'd like that. That would be... At the very beginning of the blessing, Jacob realized that he was both Jacob and Israel. He's going to call himself both of these names. Jacob messes up, Israel, child of God. And we are both. And the sons are also both. This is a place for Jacob of spiritual maturity, realizing that he is both blessed and messed up at the same time. And aren't we all? As we get to these prophecies, though, I got to tell you, way in the beginning of Genesis, I kind of did a little teaching on where did Genesis come from, who wrote it, when did it come about. Now, the ancient tradition is that Moses wrote the Pentateuch, the first 5 books. They call it the Law of Moses for a reason. Scholarship has existed for now centuries that say that Moses probably did not write the Pentateuch, especially the part where it says at the end he died. But they say that they added that later on. Chances are, the law was written. It was a collection of stories. It was a collection of writings. But it was put down into paper form, into a way that we could examine it. Somewhere around the 9th century, 8th century, 7th century, like a whole lot of traditions had to come together, and then later on they just added all these different traditions together and created the law. It took centuries and centuries and centuries for this to come together, which is why we have 2 creation stories. If you remember back in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, we had where God made in 7 days everything, and then we get the Adam and Eve stories. They have things out of order in different places. What happened was, instead of trying to merge the 2 together, the person who finally put together Genesis in the way that it is said, you know what, we're going to keep both traditions, both stories, because they're both true in their own way. Maybe not historical, like we like to think of fact and fiction, but they tell the story of God, and that's that. So what I'm getting at here is, if Genesis was written, as most biblical scholars believe, somewhere after King David's time, in those centuries, what Jacob is telling us right now, the writer already knows what's going to happen. The person who wrote this down knows what happens to the 12 tribes of Israel, knows how they're going to act. Or they could be taking a collection of stories that have passed down through the years where, you know what, Jacob did say this stuff is going to happen. And you just lived it out. Whichever way you want to go is totally fine with me. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Can you imagine if someone today wrote a story about George Washington going before the Congress and saying, South Carolina, this is what's going to happen to you in the future. Maryland, this is what's going to happen to you. And George Washington gives prophecies out to the states. And the writer knows what happens in the history of the U.S. and yada, yada, yada. That would be kind of like what's happening here. That's a horrible analogy. I shouldn't use that ever again. Don't do that. But did it make a little bit of sense what I'm trying to say? Okay. So as we read these, they come true. But the writer who wrote them knew how it was all going to turn out. Are we good? All right. So Reuben, firstborn. He had the claim to the inheritance of the firstborn, yet he forfeited through some bad things. You know, when you sleep with your dad's wife, it doesn't do so well for you. Good life lesson. Concubine Bilhah, the brothers of Dan and Naphtali. Unstable as water, you shall not excel. Though we see with great wisdom of God in decentralizing authority among the sons of Israel, there will become a favorite later on, but for now there's 12 of you doing what you can. The tribe of Reuben never really did excel, though. No prophet, no judge, no king that we know of ever came from the tribe of Reuben. And where is Reuben on the map? Let's see. Down below, kind of the red one on the right, up in the hill country. Yeah, some of those stories Moab is right down below, but those towns they don't really factor into a whole lot in the faith story. Reuben just kind of lives out their life, and that's that. Yeah. Next tribe, who do we got? 5. Ooh, 2 tribes. 5 through 7.
Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly. For they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger so fierce and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel.
Second-born Simeon, third-born Levi. They get the same words, the same blessing, although they had different endings at the end of the story. They were instruments of cruelty when they all wiped out the men of Shechem in retaliation for something that happened to their sister Dinah. That was about 10 weeks ago that we did that story. Jacob, perhaps in weakness, did nothing at that time, except he just said a couple words like, "You shouldn't have done that." "Hey, Dad, we killed the whole town." "You probably shouldn't have done that, but we'll leave it at that." That was the worst that they got from Jacob. But Jacob and the Lord remembered this event. Sometimes your past can come back to haunt you. Even in forgiveness, we may carry consequences that face a lifetime. The problem that Simeon and Levi, they were known for their anger. And their self-will, they says, what'd they do to the ox? Hamstrung the ox. There's no story in Bible that they did this, except this reference. What does hamstringing mean? You make a cut right here, and they can still live, but they are not doing any farm work. Disabled. Yeah. Yep. I think the Bible speaks of anger. If I read my Bible right. You can be angry, but do not sin, says Ephesians. There's ungodly anger like bitterness, wrath. But Jesus flipped some tables too. Someday I'll do a sermon on anger. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Turned out to be a curse for Simeon. Where's Simeon in the map? In the bottom. It's kind of an island there, isn't it? In Judah. Eventually, take a guess what's going to happen. Yeah, Judah's just going to swallow them up. Yeah. You have no access to the lake. You have no access to the ocean. You're just kind of out there on your own. Eventually, they'll get scattered within Judah. A couple hundred years after, David's going to. All right, so we get after this story, we get to the slavery in Egypt. We get slavery in Egypt for 400 years. They get freed by Moses. They go out, how many years wandering through the desert? 40 years wandering in the desert. They finally get back to the promised land. Through Joshua, they overtake it from the Canaanites and Jebusites and the Hittites and Idiotites, whatever ites there are there. There's Perizzites, there's all sorts of ites. They conquer the land, although some Canaanites still get to hang out there. They divide them up into 12 tribes. A little later, we get the Judges. When outside forces try to take them back, we get the Philistine stories. King David shows up. Solomon. David unites the country. He says, we're not doing this tribe thing anymore. We're doing a country. So he unites the tribes together. Solomon. After Solomon, we get the kings. And the country breaks up. They get a north and they get a south. I know that no country in the world has ever had a north and south in their country that had a civil war before. They had it. 200 years later, the northern tribes are wiped off the planet from the Assyrians. The LDS Church believes that those people came over here, and the Native Americans here were the 12 lost tribes from back then. You could ask historical people if that's true or not. I'm living in an area where I'm scared to say no. All right. The South holds on for 200 more years. Simeon's already been swallowed up. Which tribe really lives in the South? Who has the biggest footprint down there? Judah. So Judah takes, Benjamin kind of gets swallowed into Judah, Dan, Ephraim. That's the southern kingdom. They got Jerusalem as their capital. But they go by the collective term Judah. It's where we get the word Jews. The word Jews did not show up until Judah was by itself. Are you Jewish? Are you Judah? If you would ask King David, a couple hundred years before that, when he was just one country, hey, King David, are you Jewish? He'd have no idea what you're talking about. Never heard the term. Doesn't show up until Judah stands alone, basically. And I have no idea. Oh, yeah, Simeon. So Simeon's down there. He gets swallowed up by Judah later on in the story. Where's Levi? All over the place. The Levites turn into the priestly folk. They don't get land, but they split up all the Levi people throughout the whole land, and they get to be the priests for all the people everywhere in every tribe. So it's where the Levites come in Jesus' time. So Simeon gets scattered and kind of disappears. Levi gets scattered and tries to be a blessing to those around him. The tribe of Simeon was the weakest numerically of the 12 tribes. So we have Genesis, Exodus. What's next? Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Hey, guess what's in Numbers? A whole lot of census numbers everywhere, and they share the numbers of each tribe. And Simeon is the weakest, and so they just plop him in the middle of Judah. They figured out who gets the land, by the way, in Joshua's time. During the wandering, so you got they go from here to 400 years of slavery. Then they go to Joshua and 40 years in the wilderness, and then Joshua takes the promised land. Joshua and some leaders, they take the census, they take all the numbers, and then they try to figure out who goes where. Who's going where? So if you ever get to read the book of Joshua, it'll say, hey, Dan, this is where you're going to be. The whole shebang. Yeah. So it's not like the Oregon Trail where they all just showed up and like just I get this. There was some semblance of a process to it. This tribe of Simeon became small during the 40 years of wilderness. They started out being the third largest tribe, And 35 years later, they took a census again. They were where were they? They were the third largest. For large, and they were the smallest by the end. They just started great and not so much. Okay. 8 through 12.
Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son, like a lion who crouches and lies down, like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations shall be his. He will tether his donkey to a vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk.
Now there's a blessing. I'll take that one than the other ones. You might remember Judah was not exactly the best character in the beginning. He suggested a profit motive when they got rid of Joseph. He did not deal faithfully with their daughter-in-law, Tamar. Slept around with people he shouldn't have. But he showed good character later on when he wanted to be a substitute for Ben. And the whole Joseph, come go get your youngest brother, bring him back story. Overall, it's an example of the richness of God's grace to the undeserving. So, in a way, this prophecy over Judah is also a description of Judah's greatest descendant, and that would be Jesus. Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah. So this dying patriarch, Jacob, is speaking of his own son Judah, but these words also count for Jesus. Like a lion of the tribe of the tribe of Judah. Yeah, I've seen more bumper stickers now than I ever have. Be a lion, not a lamb. Something like that. Usually in terms of government overreach, don't be a sheep, don't follow the crowd. I'm a lion, and it's taken straight from here, where Jesus is the lion. He's going to come in and take over and get rid of all the evil in the world. So that's one interesting question about Jesus. Is he a lion or is he a lamb? I know, it's tricky, isn't it? The scepter shall not depart from Judah. All the kings of the southern kingdom will come from him, except for Saul. Saul shows up from the tribe of Benjamin. But when David comes, David's from the tribe of Judah. Let's see. There's a phrase in the King James that's not in here. Until he to whom it belongs shall come. In verse 10. Does anyone have a King James on you? Oh, he's not. The phrase that they use in King James is until Shiloh comes. Shiloh, Shiloh. Have you ever been to the Shiloh, Tennessee? Battle of Shiloh? Civil War? My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather died right after the Battle of Shiloh of appendicitis, but still, he was in the moon. Did he? Oh. Yep. It was a big one down there. Until Shiloh comes. Shiloh in Hebrew means person of peace, and so they just took... They weren't sure if it was a name or if it was a description. And so he'll tether his donkey to a vine, his colt to the choicest branch, garments and wine, grapes. Life's good. How do we know it's good? His teeth is white. Teeth are white. Got good health care in the tribe of Judah. Tribe of Judah. There is a lot of abundance. There's a lot of wine country down there. Judah turns out pretty good for the 12 tribes. All right, we got some smaller ones that will only get a verse or two. Verse 13, one verse, one little tiny, teeny verse.
Zebulun will live by the seahorse and become,
You're so close.
sorry, and become a haven for ships. His border will extend toward Sidon.
All right. Live by the seashore. It's all right. So, all right, if you know your Bible, Jacob's skipping the birth order, moving to the 10th born and the 9th born sons here, but keeping us focused on the sons born of Leah. So we're keeping with one mom here. The tribe of Zebulun was noted for its faithfulness to King David, supplying the largest number of soldiers to David's army of any single tribe. Out of Zebulun, 50,000 who went out to battle, according to 1 Chronicles. A haven for ships, which is kind of funny. Where's Zebulun? He's inside. How do you get to be a haven for ships if you're on the inside? All right, so if you notice that the borders are not square, they're not lines. They follow mountain ridges, they follow valleys, and for Zebulun there's a river that goes straight up. Do you see that little kind of elbow thing in the sea? You follow it diagonally down. That's a big old river. And so you can sail ships up there, and Zebulun is a shipbuilder, and then they just go down the river and off they go. But it's between the lake and the sea. They settled a piece of land sitting between the Mediterranean and the Sea of Galilee. So they could look to the sea both east and to the west. That's Zebulun. Let's find out from Issachar, 15 and 16.
I'm sorry, what number
14
did
and
you?
15. 14 and 15.
Okay. Ishkar is a raw-boned donkey lying down among the sheep pens. When he sees how good it is in his resting place and how pleasant is his land, he will bend his shoulder to the burden and submit to the forced labor.
Issachar was a large tribe by population, according to the census numbers, and it would become a band of slaves. They were often targets of oppressive foreign armies that would put them into servitude. That's what eventually they would become. They see the whole point of Jacob's blessing here. You are strong, but you're also docile and lazy. You have good land, but you're not going to work too hard for it because you don't have to. And eventually you're going to be pressed into servitude and bear the burdens for others. Where's Issachar? Yep, right there in the middle. Lots of raiding armies kind of moving through there. Let's find out from Dan, 16 through 18.
Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider tumbles backward. I look for your deliverance, Lord.
The tribe of Dan did judge their people, supplied one of their most prominent judges, Samson, if you know that story of Samson. A lot of judges came from Dan. Here in the United States, what's the number one court that we have? Supreme Court. If you look at the Supreme Court, what is the religious background of those who sit on the Supreme Court? There are two main ones. Not Methodist. No. Catholic. Law. Rules. And if you get outside of Christianity, Jewish. Law. People of the law. Go to the Supreme Court. Look it up. So many. Now and a long time ago. Catholic, Jewish, and Ivy League. That's in there too. Law, Dan, law. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a troublesome tribe as well. They introduced idolatry into Israel out of Judges. A whole bunch of idolatrous golden calves went up. Dan later became the center of idol worship in Israel. So if you go to Revelation, don't do this, but if you go to Revelation chapter 7, there's a listing of the 144,000 people who are going to get saved. And they call on the tribes of Israel. And they leave Dan out. Dan is not listed. In the Old Testament, Ezekiel has a role as well of those who get to make it to the end. And Ezekiel has Dan in there. There is a small break. It kind of goes out of the middle of nowhere. Verse 18. 16 and 17 talking about Dan, and then 18 by itself. I look for your deliverance, Lord. It would seem, and the way it's written, that Jacob is doing his blessing. I bless you, I bless you, I bless you, I bless you. Oh, Lord, I'm tired. I look for your deliverance, oh Lord. Like, this has nothing to do with Dan, but this is Jacob pausing, asking for a prayer. And give me more. I need strength. Have you seen my kids? I need more strength. Yes. And then he moves on with Gad. All right, these are the short ones. 19. Verse 19. Oh, hold on. I didn't say where Dan was. Where's Dan in the middle? Where's Dan? Where's he at? Oh, there's Dan. Right by Joppa, where Jonah would make his trip. 19.
Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at their heels.
That's my blessing, Dad. That's what you have for me. The tribe of Gad would supply many fine troops for the later king of Israel, King David. But a troop shall tramp upon them. In the days of Jeremiah and other times, foreign armies would come in and would oppress Gad on their way to Jerusalem. Yet victory would be theirs in the end, it says. Where is Gad? Yep, on the other side of the Jordan River there, right? Yep. Yeah, the hard one to read, right? Yeah. Most of the action in the Bible takes place on the left side of the Jordan River. So you go between the two rivers there. At the top you got the Sea of Galilee, and at the bottom the Dead Sea, right? So the Sea of Galilee, it's got water that comes in and it's got water that goes out. The Dead Sea, nothing. You got water that goes in and it stays there. There's no way out. It's a low point. It's actually below the sea level, I believe. And it's just so filled with salt, so filled with, it's kind of like our Great Salt Lake. You know, we got some streams and stuff that trickle into the Great Salt Lake. The Great Salt Lake has nothing going out. It's all evaporated. So that's how it gets so. You could float in the Salt Sea, in the Dead Sea, just by you go in. You can't hardly drown. You just can't get yourself down under the water. Cool. Who are we at? Ooh, Asher, 20.
Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king.
Deuteronomy chapter 33 and a few more books. Moses again took up this prophecy regarding Asher. You are Asher. You're going to be one of the most blessed of the kids. You are going to dip your foot in oil. You're going to be. You got food. You're going to be a place of abundance, and you're going to know how to cook. If you think of Europe, where's some of the best food? France and Italy. Those are the two that come to mind, right? I'm sure England's got fine food. I'm sure Germany is great. But Paris? Italy? Yeah. That's the Asher of the 12 tribes of Israel. The land eventually occupied by Asher was good enough to not only bring necessities but also luxuries. The Beverly Hills of the 12 tribes. One more short one, Naphtali.
Polly is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns.
Aww. Oh, I didn't even say where Asher was. Where's Asher? Tell her. It's also got good trading. You could trade with other countries and get good stuff. Yeah. Naphtali, where's Naphtali? I'm at a really bad angle here. Yeah, it's at the top. Naphtali's land was a key portion near the Sea of Galilee there, the region where Jesus did much of his ministry and teaching. There's all sorts of stories of Naphtali in the Gospels. Here we have beautiful words. You're like a doe. So much ministry of Jesus took place in the region of Naphtali. This is fittingly said of him. Yeah. Now we get a long one. Who wants to read 22 to 26?
Joseph is a fruitful vine near a spring whose branches climb over a wall. With bitterness, archers attacked him. They shot at him with hostility, but his bow remained steady. His strong arms stayed limber. Because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, because of your father's God who helps you, because of the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the skies above, blessings of the deep springs below, blessings of the breast and womb. Your father's blessings are greater than the blessings of the ancient mountains, than the bounty of the age-old hills. Let all of these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers.
You might remember Joseph is the one that just saved them all from starvation. You're going to get a good blessing, Joseph. But if I look, where is the tribe of Joseph? Oh, he had 2 kids, didn't he? Didn't we have the blessing on both knee and they had a flip-flop and all that? We get the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh. Manasseh split. I was not in that meeting in Joshua when they decided to say this, we're going to have East Manasseh and West Manasseh, and they're not even going to touch. But Manasseh was a big tribe. Let's split them up. A fruitful bow, a fruitful vine, an apt description of Joseph's life and a personal blessing upon his descendants. Joseph was certainly blessed in his posterity. His tribes were some of the most populous. In a sense, he received the material blessing, kind of a double portion aspect of the inheritance. Back in the day, the firstborn got a double inheritance. The mighty God of Jacob, the shepherd, the stone of Israel. We get some unique language. The God of your father, the Almighty. Joseph gets a pretty good blessing in here. All right, we're almost there to the end of the tribes. Verse 27, just one small verse.
Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey. In the evening he divides the plunder.
Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Ben was a tribe with a reputation of fierceness. He will devour his prey. In the book of Judges, there's people who come from Ben. Ehud, King Saul comes from this tribe. The cruelty of this tribe is generally seen in Judges 19 and 20 when they're still trying to take the land from the Canaanites. But that's Ben. And Ben is right there. Just a little guy, right? Yep. Jerusalem's there. Tribe of Ben. And I'll read verse 28 here just for fun. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father said to them when he blessed them. giving each the blessing appropriate to him. Some of the things mentioned regarding these tribes may seem a bit cloudy, but only because we don't know of their exact fulfillment in the age to come. Maybe some of these things are still yet to happen. I don't know. Some people are trying to bring, they brought Israel back, right? After World War II. Let's give them a nation. Some more militant evangelicals are hoping that Israel and the Arab nations get into a giant war because they can get us into the end times. I don't want to see that. Let's not try. If it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen. Let's not push for it. Each son and each tribe that would come from them had their own calling and destiny, and they survived 400 years of Egypt, and they would grow into significant tribes, without one perishing during the centuries to come in Egypt. So that was pretty neat. Later on, they might come and disappear and mash into each other, but for right now, they get to be their independent states. But we have to say goodbye to, we're almost out of time. We got to say goodbye to Jacob. It's been a good run, Jacob. 29 to 32. 29 to 32.
All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him. The death of Jacob. Then he gave them these instructions. I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephron and the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah, near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron to the Hittite. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were bought from the Hittites.
Jacob was confident that his father Isaac and his grandfather Abram continued to live in some eternal state, and that he would be gathered to them. Bury me with my fathers. Although he was now in Egypt, he knew he was not an Egyptian, the son of a promise, the son of land, and if it's your land, you go get buried in your land. In the cave that is in the field of Machpelah. Egypt now had magnificent tombs, beautiful places to get buried. Matter of fact, some of their biggest structures are mausoleums, are they not? In Egypt. You walk into a tomb and it's adorned beautifully. In Canaan, you get a cave. Ash to ash, dust to dust. And our reward is on the eternal side. In the land of promise. And we got one more verse.
When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people.
This ends the life of the last of the great patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. But yet the men and the plan of God did not end. It continued through generations yet to come. Jacob did not give up the ghost until he had delivered the last sentence of benedictions to his 12 sons, and he was gathered to his people. All right, I know you're looking at the sheet right now, but let me just end with this line for Jacob. During these years, the Greeks believed you lived, you died, you're gone. Okay? The modern world today, we have this idea that we are going to live forever. Woohoo! We are never going to die. And if you tell someone someday you're going to die, la 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 la, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. The Hebrew story. Yeah, someday we'll die. But it's not the end. It's not the end.